Welcome to our Applying for an Apprenticeship webinar. It's a masterclass in applying for an apprenticeship. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at different things with regards to applying for an apprenticeship. What we have got with us today is we are going to be joined by one of our employers and one of our learners. So I'll do brief introductions straight away. Okay, my name's Julie Podesta. I am the Customer Experience Manager for Total People. So Total People are a work-based learning provider. We cover the whole of the Northwest area and we currently deliver apprenticeships in approximately 15 different vocational areas. Also joining me today on the webinar is my colleague Jane Shaw, and Jane is one of our recruitment and engagement officers, so Jane will be taking us through some of the webinar. And we are also very pleased to be joined by Debbie Davies-Booth and Abigail Duncan from Advanced Manufacturing Services. So what we wanted to look at today was, within this masterclass of applying for apprenticeship, we wanted to look at a couple of different factors. So we wanted to look at the current situation that we're in, because COVID-19 has no doubt had an impact on the recruitment process and the applying for apprenticeship process. So we've invited Debbie as the employer at Advanced Manufacturing Service, and Abigail, who is the apprentice, the new colleague working at Advanced Manufacturing Services. And what we're going to do is we're going to start the webinar by asking them some questions about the application for an apprenticeship process. Okay, so let's move on now. Okay. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to start with Debbie. So can you hear me okay, Debbie?
Yes, I can, Julie, yes.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us today, Debbie.
You're welcome.
Good. All right, so Debbie is the employer at Advanced Manufacturing Services. You can guarantee something's going to go wrong when technology's involved, can't you? Okay, so I suppose really, Debbie, what we're looking at is, a couple of different things, but I suppose the first question I could ask you is, what made you decide to recruit an apprentice at Advanced Manufacturing Services?
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. As Julie says, my name's Debbie Davies-Booth. I'm the Human Resources Manager at Advanced Manufacturing Services. So actually, just before I go ahead and actually let you know why we decided to employ an apprentice, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background information on our company that will obviously, this will make a little bit more sense going forward. So Advanced Manufacturing Services, we're a small medium enterprise. We're established in 2001 by our current managing director, Richard Jones. We're based in Sandbach, Cheshire, and basically what our company does, they primarily serve the professional electronics industry throughout the UK and Ireland. So we've grown over recent years. Currently, we have 9 full-time staff, and that includes our latest team member, Abby. So the reasons why we decided to decide on an apprenticeship. So in December last year, we were selected to become the UK and Ireland distributor for a global specialty chemicals company, which basically has the potential to significantly increase the turnover of our company. So taking on this new venture, we would obviously certainly mean an increase in resource for the business. So having undertaken this decision, we decided that the initial key requirement was to employ a business administrator, and they would be helping with the additional work that the office would need to process as a result of this new contract. So reasons, we sat down and we decided that we wanted to give this opportunity to an apprentice, to give them a chance to learn new skills and hopefully start to build a potentially great and rewarding career with us as we continue to grow. So we wanted to inject some energy and enthusiasm from a talented and ambitious individual who, with our help and guidance, we could upskill to fulfill our future resourcing needs. So we felt the mix of the on-the-job training together with studying the relevant qualifications, that was the perfect way forward for us. So that's basically the sort of answer to your question, why we decided on an apprenticeship and the reasons behind that decision, Julie.
All right, no, that's great. It gives us a bit of background. So it's obviously, the growth of the company is great. But I suppose one of the other questions was, so once you decided and you decided that an apprenticeship or taking on an apprentice was the right move for the company, what benefits do you think having an apprentice in place will bring to the organisation?
Oh, right, okay. Well, firstly, I suppose, as mentioned earlier, we hope that obviously the energy, enthusiasm and willingness to learn that the apprentice brings will diversify and freshen up the workforce. I mean, I'll be honest, there's nothing like a new member of team to increase productivity. You've got somebody coming on board. People think, oh, crikey, I better up my game here. So yeah, definitely that's a benefit. Obviously, we can ensure that we can train the apprentice so they're able to develop the knowledge, skills and behaviours that our company needs. And hopefully, by us undertaking the training, it also alleviates any sort of bad habits that a more experienced member of staff may have. We have found in the past, obviously, people have come on board and obviously do things slightly in a different way than what we want them to do, and they do get into some little bad habits. So we wanted to try and alleviate that, and also we're hoping that an apprentice will bring some fresh new ideas to the team.
Brilliant.
One of the other things that we also obviously looked at is cost. I'm sure to every company, cost is a major factor, and obviously to a small company such as ours, that was a deciding factor. Obviously, having the apprenticeship, we can receive assistance with the training costs from the government. So, and I'm so sure, obviously, this is something that if people are interested in, Julie, you obviously be able to give them further information.
Most definitely, yeah.
And finally, I think by investing our time and money in the apprentice, hopefully, the main aim is that they'll want to stay with us in the longer term. And obviously, we haven't got a high turnover of staff at our company. We're very, very lucky. When people come to us, they do tend to stay with us. I've been at AMS for nearly 10 years, so hopefully they want to stay with us. And this has another knock-on effect in that it reduces the time and any associated recruitment costs, because obviously the turnover of the staff, continuous recruitment, recruitment agencies, my time. So hopefully we think that we'll save time and cost there.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, like, the purpose of today obviously is an apprenticeship masterclass. So what my next question really is aimed towards that. So it's, when you are obviously recruiting, what would you look for on an apprenticeship application?
Okay, there's a number of points that I look for, really. The advice I would give out to people is to include as much relevant information as possible, not to waffle. Do understand there's only a limited amount of space, but think very clearly what information you're putting down, and obviously the relevance to the position that you're applying for. One of the things that I do as an employer is I'm trying to build a picture of the applicant from the initial application. So obviously what you put down is sort of the picture that I'm building. The second point I'd make is make sure you complete the application fully. I've had applications where the applicant has not even answered the basic information. They've missed out qualifications, they've not put interests, sort of any other experience, and obviously, this is your initial impression that you are making on a potential employer. So make sure that you do complete the application as fully as possible. One of the other things that we also look for, and I appreciate that not everybody achieves this first time round, but we look to make sure that applicants have got maths and English at the required standard. If you haven't got them, yeah, okay, we take that into consideration. But as long as you're willing to go back and study to obtain the qualification, then we'd look to take your application forward. Just trying to think from recent applications. One of the things that I do find most irritating, if I'm honest, people make very obvious spelling mistakes, grammar, slang words, sentences don't make sense. So you really need to get somebody to look at your application, ask a, parent, teacher, whoever it may be, just to reread your application and make sure that it makes sense. That is key. And finally, one of the other things that I look for is any other work experience, any voluntary work, part-time employment, because that obviously lets me see that you've taken on board what you're wanting to do and you've looked to try and gain some experience already. Yeah, I understand that might not be the case for all applicants, but it's definitely something that I look at as an employer.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. And then with relating to, I know Abby's very recently become the latest colleague within your team, but looking at it from an employer's perspective, I know that the majority of your recruitment process has been done during the COVID-19 restrictions. So I'm just wondering, how was that interview process during COVID-19 restrictions?
Yeah, to be honest, obviously, I think everybody's had a tough time over the last few months. Basically, initially, we started our discussions with Total People back in January, and it was at that point that we were visited by a representative who came onto our site. Obviously, no restrictions at that time. Came and met me and we had a chat. I went away, did some further research, and I decided that I did want to proceed with Total People as our training provider. So we discussed the business administrator qualification. We were also sent some example apprentice job descriptions. So it was at that point that we started to put together our apprenticeship advertisement when suddenly the country was put into lockdown in March. We decided to continue initially, and the advertisement was placed on the National Apprenticeship website and Total People's website. So it was agreed then that Total People would forward all the apprenticeship applications to myself. However, I was very keen, in view of the current situation, that there was a response to each applicant, just to confirm that we'd actually received their application. But obviously, due to the current situation, we wouldn't look to be reviewing them until the beginning of May, when obviously we hoped at that time that we'd be in a far better position to move to the next step. There was a lady called Karen Carruthers who she was absolutely fantastic. She was in constant contact with me via telephone, email, Microsoft Teams calls during this period. She kept everybody fully up to date, both myself and any applicants during, as I say, the lockdown period. So we got to the beginning of May. We began to review all the applications received and we shortlisted the candidates. Again, Karen advised everybody that was unsuccessful. She gave feedback to them and she arranged to contact the candidates that we wanted to take to interview. So we did the interviews. They were undertaken on Microsoft Teams and Zoom, which I think Abby will agree worked extremely well. Obviously, it's not something that we would normally do. We normally like to meet you face to face.
Yeah.
So what we did after that is we decided to offer Abby a morning's trial. So she came into the office so she could find out more about the apprenticeship and obviously for us to meet Abby. Now, one of the things that we were obviously very keen to ensure is to make Abby aware of all the procedures and measures that our company currently put into force, obviously due to COVID-19. So Abby will tell you we have a lovely machine as you just come through the door, and it says temperature is normal or or not. If not, you're not allowed in.
Yeah.
So we have these daily checks. We have hand sanitizer upon arrival, and then obviously that's available at all times. Hand washing facilities, masks need to be worn, chairs, tables, equipments, they're all thoroughly wiped down. And then we have had a screen built between the desks in the office, because obviously the desks are quite close together, and where possible we do try to adhere to social distancing.
Yeah.
So they're all the measures that we've taken. Again, it's something that, you know, we want to protect our staff at the end of the day, and obviously we wanted to protect Abby. So I was pleased to say that Abby's trial went very well, and we decided to offer the position. She started a new role in June. One of the things that Total People did ask us for was a full risk assessment for Abby prior to her joining us. Obviously, they want to make sure that during these times that Abby is going to be safe.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was brilliant. So the other points to note is that since Abby has joined us, the apprenticeship sign up and the review meetings that are undertaken, they've all been done by Microsoft Teams, and again work really well. Chats with Chris, who's one of the learning mentors. So yeah, everything's going really well. So what I would like to say is that throughout the process, Total People have been brilliant. They provided excellent support and assistance in helping us to fulfil our apprenticeship position. And to be honest, I feel we're really lucky to have Abby join our team. She's settled in so well with us. We're just chuffed to bits that she's joined us.
That's absolutely brilliant, and thank you so much, Debbie, for answering all those questions, because that just gives to anyone who's going through the application process reassurance that you know, even though this is our new normal, things are still happening, that you know that interviews are still happening, applications are still happening, and you know, it's hints and tips on that may help other young people when they're going through this process. So thank you for that. That's great.
You're welcome.
Okay, right, what I'll do now, if it's okay, I'll move over to Abby. So Abby, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
That's great. Yes, I can hear you
Yep,
loud
good.
and clear. Okay, so Abby, we've heard a fantastic story there. It's lovely to hear that you're settling into your new job and you know everything's going really well. But I suppose some of the questions, you were the applicant in this process, Abby. So it's talking to you about your story on this through this process. So I suppose, could we start with what made you decide to do an apprenticeship?
It was mainly wanting to gain on-the-job experience. I had attended university for 1 year prior before deciding it wasn't for me. I would much rather pursue like learning on the job, and it's 100% been the right choice for me. I'm enjoying it much better. Feel like I'm progressing better as well.
Right.
Yeah. I just feel like you do learn better on the job. It's hard to explain, like you know what you're doing rather than just learning the theory of something.
Yes.
Like
Okay.
in a classroom, you can only learn so much without actually doing it.
Yeah, I think that sort of preempted our second question. I think what I was going to say to you, what are the benefits that an apprenticeships are going to bring to you as compared to full-time college? So that obviously what you've just discussed before, that does cover some of that. But are there any other benefits to you of the apprenticeship as opposed to full-time college course?
Yeah, another one of the big ones for me was being paid. I find that from my experience and just my friend's experience, when you go to university or you do a full-time college course, you often have to work a part-time job on top of that to be able to pay for any bills or like any other luxuries you might want. Whereas if you do an apprenticeship, you generally work sort of 9 to 5 hours, getting paid, and then you still have your time outside of that to do, well, whatever you want, really. And yeah, it gives you a lot more time to, well, do any studying you wish to do outside of it, as well as still give you time to have a social life. Well, where I was at uni, you know, I'd go to my lessons in the morning and afternoon, and then I'd go working at night and repeat the cycle. And I found myself having less time to study or even just meet with my friends.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good. It's I suppose one that, you know, you'd need to think of it. It gives you your independence, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, like for you going through the application process, what was that application process like for the apprenticeship, and what support did you get along the way?
I found the application process quite easy, similar to how Debbie described it. I found the apprenticeship on the government website,
Yeah.
and it was as easy as, you know, just clicking on it. It gave you a list of questions to answer just about your education, work experience, personal stuff about you, strengths and weaknesses, you know, sort of the usual stuff.
Yeah.
Then you just submitted that with it. Not long later, Debbie and Karen contacted me just to say that my application was successful and I'd be getting an interview about 10 days later or something.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh.
And the interview, again, it was done on Teams, which worked really well. It's strange having an interview where you don't walk in and shake hands and do all the usual formalities.
Yeah.
But yeah, and
Like,
then sorry, go on.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, the interview, as far as interviews go, I found it to be more laid back. It was more of a chat, get to know each other rather than, you know, here's all the questions, everything's dead serious.
Yeah.
It was more about making you feel comfortable.
That's
And then,
brilliant.
yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, like, we've actually touched on about the applicant's perspective and the interview process. So I suppose the final question that we had for you was what now that you've successfully got the job, so congratulations, really,
Thank
really
you.
good that, you know, you're enjoying it all, but what are you looking forward to for the rest of your apprenticeship, Abby?
Well, I'm looking to be looking forward to being fully trained up and being able to progress.
Yeah.
I'm also just now studying with the CIPD to do my level 3 in HR.
Yeah.
So that is sort of my end goal, to work in HR. Although now that I've started the apprenticeship, I've also been doing a little bit on marketing and I'm enjoying that.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying learning about different aspects of business and just deciding which one I'll want to take further, you know?
No, that's absolutely brilliant. I suppose lots of opportunities in there. I think that's what one of the general messages for apprenticeships. They do bring lots of opportunities when you're in the workplace, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what I am going to say is, there any from obviously the attendees? Is there any questions that we have for Debbie or Abby? If you want to raise your hand, if anyone has any questions, what we can do is unmute you and you can ask the questions. No? Okay, what I will say to everyone who's attending, if we don't want to do that and we don't want to be, oh, apologies, my screen there flicked off. Yeah, if you don't want to do that, what you can do is you can actually put your questions in the chat panel. And if you know there are any questions in there, what we can do is try and touch on them at the end. I do believe that Abby and Debbie may have to leave us now, because obviously today's one of their work days, and I really, really do appreciate their time that they've given to us for this. But if you do have any questions that are for the employer or for the applicant, so for Debbie or Abby, please post them in the chat and we will make sure we get those questions to them, and then we can respond to you after the webinar. Okay. Right, but thank you very much, Debbie and Abby.
You're welcome, Julie. Thanks very much.
You're
And
welcome.
good luck with everybody. If you obviously decide to go and apply for apprenticeship, can't get my teeth in today, Julie.
One of them days, Debbie.
Yeah, it's definitely something worth to consider. Definitely. Good
Brilliant.
luck, everyone. Okay, take care. Goodbye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye. Yep, good luck, everyone. And it's definitely something to consider. Don't overlook an apprenticeship if all your friends are going to university or whatever. They are just as valuable.
Thank you very much for that, Abby.
No problem. Good luck.
All right, thank you. Okay, so what we're going to do now, guys, is we're going to move on to the bit where myself and Jane from Total People, so we'll take you through a little bit of the masterclass. So we've only got a few more slides. I promise we won't keep you that much longer. But what we're going to look at now is deciding which apprenticeship. Okay, so really will make up a huge part of your life. So your interests and your hobbies are the things that you enjoy doing most. So they may be a good starting point for choosing the career that you want to do. So the two questions that we've got at the top of the slide: what do you want to do, and what if you don't know what you want to do? We've been in this industry for quite a while now, and we attend lots of careers events and seminars, and we get talking to a lot of people that sort of are very focused and organised and know what they want to do. And we also get an equal amount of people who say, I haven't got a clue and I don't know what I want to do. So what I would say our general message is for everyone is we always say, think about what you enjoy, think about your skills, think about how you can use them, and think about what you have experience in. Because if you spend a good proportion of your life, your adult life, in a role, you want it to be something that, one, you're committed to, one, that you want to develop, and another, that you want to do something that you enjoy. It's not going to be, if you're getting up and doing 8 hours a day in a work role, you want it to be something that you've got a passion for. So, something that you've got that fire in your belly and you really want to do. Okay, so I suppose then once you've decided what potentially you might want to do, it's where do you start? So there's multiple websites out there that you can access. So the one that I would imagine that you're all aware of is the Find an Apprenticeship website. The Find an Apprenticeship website is where all training providers across the country advertise their vacancies when they're working with employers. So every opportunity is on there. If you know what it is you're looking for, and let's say you want to do a similar role to Abby and you want to be a business administrator, you can put that into a search field and say, I want to look for a business administrator role within 5 miles of where I live, and the National Apprenticeship website will show you all of those vacancies. If you're one of the people who's still not sure and still doesn't know what they want to do, you can actually leave that search field blank and just say, just show me every apprenticeship within a 5-mile radius. And it will do that. The system is absolutely brilliant, and it will help you and support you, and it will show you everything. And it usually filters them in distance from your postcode that you put in. So you'll know straight away whether you can get to a vacancy. And then it gives you all the details. So the Find an Apprenticeship website will have full job descriptions. So you'll be able to have a look at those adverts and see if it's something you want to do. If you are one of the people who knows what they want to do and say, as I said, from a very, very young age, I want to work in, and let's use, for example, animal care. Okay, if you want to do a specific course, but are not necessarily sure of what training providers or colleges provide that course and provide that apprenticeship training, there's something called the Find a Training Provider website. And that it's again based within the gov.uk website, but what you would do is you would go onto that, you would put in the course that you want to do, and then you would ask it to find you the local training providers. And it's, like I say, within the gov.uk website, and that will give you a list of providers, again in distance order from where you live, telling you who actually delivers that course. Once you've got some of that information, you can then contact these training providers. And what you will tend to find, the third one on the list, is that training provider websites usually have links to all their vacancies as well. So as a training provider, for example, we work with over 1,500 employers. So from those 1,500 employers, if they have vacancies, we would advertise them on our website, and we would also advertise them on the Find an Apprenticeship website. So straight away, we've got 3 places there that's really going to give you some really good support. And then you also find that social media and the Amazing Apprenticeship website is really good as well. But social media, there are lots of companies now that post job adverts. So on Facebook, on Insta, on LinkedIn, on Twitter. So you will find that lots of them do that. So keep an eye on all of those websites and those places, and that will give you your starting point. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click to the next slide, and I'm going to introduce my colleague Jane. Jane is one of our recruitment and engagement officers, and Jane is part of a fabulous team, and I'm very proud of them all. And what they do is help and support all applicants who are looking for an apprenticeship, and Jane's going to take you through some of the application process. So there we go, Jane, over to you.
Hello everybody, can you hear me?
We can, Jane, yes.
Oh, lovely. Good afternoon, everybody. So like Julie says, I'm part of the recruitment and engagement team. So just following on from Julie and the employer and the apprentice earlier. So where are we actually going to start? So job application and your search, where are you going to search? So Julie's giving you some really good websites to have a look at there. But if you're still really unsure of the role that you'd like to go into, I tend to use what's called the Institute for Apprenticeships. So on that website, they list every vocational standard. So that's every qualification linking to vocational areas. It gives you an overview about the role, so what you will be doing, the knowledge that you will actually learn throughout your apprenticeship, skills. So that's kind of like all the practical activities that you will need to demonstrate competency in as part of the apprenticeship program. And it also tells you as well the behaviours, so the personal qualities you will need to have. So looking at that just as an example, so going back to Abby, who's thinking about or is now currently in a HR role, one of the behaviours is being honest. So with being honest, she will need to maintain confidentiality at all times. So think about yourself. Are you the kind of person that likes to gossip? Would you get yourself into trouble because you're gossiping about people and telling tales? So thinking about the behaviours, how those link to you. So what I tend to do is to ask people to think about your own personal values. So are you an honest person? Do you like being honest? If you are, would a sales role necessarily be for you? So could you actually persuade somebody to buy something, if you did not believe in that product yourself, because it goes against what's called your values? Now, there are alternatives. So if you're looking to do, say, construction, one of the skills is working in cold weather, because as you can imagine, during the winter months on the sites, it would be quite cold. But there's another different side to construction. So you have the maintenance side, so that would be going into people's properties and, doing the repair works on their properties. So you're still within that role, but you're not necessarily on the site. So think outside the box sometimes as well. So again, going back to your personal values, just ask yourself a couple of questions. So what is important to you? What are your personal values? And if money was no object, think about what career choice you would choose. And does that career choice meet your value? So, are you going to be comfortable in that role? So just looking at the slide, like Debbie mentioned before, qualifications will be important to the employer. So looking at the job description, do you meet those qualifications? Any relevant experience as well. So I know Debbie mentioned about, part-time work, and what I see a lot of the time, the applicants I work with, they think, well, I don't have any relevant work experience. I want to go in construction, but I've just been working at McDonald's. Well, customer service on the maintenance side is a large part of the role. So think about those transferable skills. So try and identify with somebody who you trust, the skills that you could bring across. So it might be health and safety, teamwork, honesty. Are you taking payments and dealing with money? Okay. Looking at the employer skills and qualities, so on the adverts on the National Apprenticeship site, every employer will list their chosen desired skills and personal qualities. So think about yourself, how do you meet those? If you're not, is that role going to be for you? Is it something where you're not going to be happy? If you have lots and lots of those skills, then it's going to suit you and you will probably flourish there. Salary, that's a big one. So thinking about your personal circumstances, is the pay actually going to be enough for you? So within vocational areas, some employers may pay more, some employers may pay less. So think about what's actually right for you as well. Now, another thing to actually consider is the geographical location of the employer. So where actually are they? So What you tend to find with animal care opportunities or apprenticeship vacancies, because they deal with dogs, which are quite noisy, as you can imagine, they're usually in rural locations. So they may not necessarily be on a bus or a tram route. So how are you going to get there? Can you get there? Again, construction types or, other apprenticeships, you may have to work in different locations of the business. So they may have various multi-sites. How are you going to get there? And it's also saying as well to think about the actual company that you're looking at and that you want to apply for. Are they a company you are going to feel comfortable working for? So I tend to advise a lot of the people I work with to look at Google reviews. What are people posting about that company on their website? As well, go to the actual company website and check out testimonials from the clients that they're working with, the current employees that are there. What do they say about that company? Because they're the people who deal with them on a daily basis, and they will have a good insight as to what that company is like. Again, check if they have an annual report. Can you dip into that, and can you access some information that will make you have an informed choice? And again, most companies do have values and ethics. So do they match yours? Do you feel you could actually work for that company? Okay, if you could move on to the next slide, Julie, please. So now you've actually researched and found a company that you'd like to work for, next is about getting that application across to them. Now, going back to what Debbie said, and it's a really important point, she is the employer, and your application, like she said, paints a good picture, to that employer as to the reasons why they should employ you. So first off, read about the advert. What is the actual job role? Is it something that's going to interest you? Is it going to stimulate you to keep you, actively involved in that workplace, and you're going to feel as though you are progressing? Or do you feel, it will hit a point where you're not going to progress anymore? These are things you need to consider. Look at the actual requirements of the job. So certain apprenticeships, dependent on hours or health and safety reasons, may list an age requirement. Are you meeting that? That should say in the additional comments or additional requirements part. But sometimes people overlook that, and I think there's nothing more frustrating than getting a series, of rejections, and it sometimes is a case of you've not fully read the advert. And look at the level, what you're going to be working towards. So if you do have previous experience or qualifications, is that level going to be too low for you? Are you not going to learn? And similarly, on the opposite side, if you've no experience, is that apprenticeship going to be set at too high a level? So what we need to do is fully research the actual job advert. Closing dates. Every job advert does say a closing date. Now, what I would suggest is getting your application across as soon as possible, because sometimes some employers, if they do receive a large amount of applications, they can close it soon. And if you're working on it and spending too long, you may just miss that ideal opportunity for you. So just consider that as well. Again, what you need to consider, like Debbie says, is grammar, capital letters, full stops, commas, spelling mistakes. A lot of employers, that I've worked with previously, they won't consider people, if you're not giving a good reflection of yourself as well. Okay. So one of the large boxes on the actual apprenticeship website application is about your key strengths. So what I would do is look at the desired skills and personal qualities that are actually on the job advert, give specific examples of how you meet that, and consider as well your transferable skills. Try not to repeat your examples as well. So try and give different examples, so it really does give a really good in-depth picture to that employer. And some of the other things that I do see is passive language. So you may put, I sometimes have, as opposed to, I have done X, Y, and Z, and I would like to have more experience in this because I have enjoyed it. So thinking about the actual language that you're using on your application form, try to keep it positive, make it clear to the point. So like Debbie said, please don't waffle, make it concise. You only have a certain amount of characters, but you need to get across those important points. And the final point is, again, to get your application checked by somebody you trust. Proofread it, make sure that it is looking good, there's no spelling mistakes, that the sentences make sense, exactly what Debbie has highlighted. And once you're absolutely happy as Larry with that application, then click the submit button. So that is pretty much it. If anybody's got any questions, can we see if there's any questions, please, Julie?
Yep, there's no hands raised and there's nothing in the chat box. So again, the same applies, everyone. If you do have any questions or you want to ask anything, please do, put them in the chat panel and we'll make sure that we get them answered at a later point for you. Okay, right. What we'll do now, we'll move swiftly on to the next bit, which is the interview skills. So as we know, we're in a very, very unusual circumstance at the moment with what we're going through with COVID. And although some employers have used remote interviews for a long, long time, I think it's new to quite a lot of us. So what we're looking at now is how to ace that remote interview. So I think there's just a few key points on this one, and a lot of them are common sense when it comes to that. So before the interview, you need to think about your interview setup. I think one of the key things is try where possible not to use a smartphone. If you have access to a laptop or a tablet that you can use instead of that, that's a lot better, because there are going to be certain circumstances where if you're using a smartphone, having to actually hold that phone and it moving about, it can cause problems. It's also other things, such as if you have your CV prepared or documents, an employer at some point may ask you to share screen or to send stuff across to them. So if you're trying to do it from a smartphone, that can pose some problems. So try where possible to arrange it via a laptop or a tablet. I think one of the key things is you need to remove distractions. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I've been praying throughout this whole webinar that my dogs don't bark, because in this situation, when we're all working from home, there are things like that. But when it is a proper interview situation, what you need to do is try and remove those distractions. Make sure there's nobody walking past. Make sure you've got a nice quiet room, and make sure that you can give your full attention to that interview. That's what will be expected at a face-to-face interview. So that's what's going to be expected on a remote interview. Okay, interview clothes. An employer will still expect you to be in interview clothes. We've all seen the internet stories where people dress for work attire from the waist up, and then they've got the Hawaiian shorts on the bottom half. You just need to make sure that whatever that impression, what that employer sees, it's as if you are going for a face-to-face interview. And ask yourself the question, if I turned up for an interview in what I'm wearing on the other end of a camera on a screen, what would an employer say about that? And if you don't think it's right, then make sure that you change and you get your proper work attire ready. Okay, have information to hand. If you've got access to a printer or anything, print out your CV. You can use them as prompt documents throughout. So if an employer asks a question, you've got them in front of you. Print out your application, or even take a copy of your application so that you've then got that there, so you can relate back to some of the examples. So where Jane's explained to you about putting examples into your interview, you don't have to remember everything. You can use your information as your resources. And then one big thing is making sure that you follow on from that application and research the company and the job. There are some standard interview questions that an employer will ask, and one of them is usually, what do you know about our company? Can you tell us? So you could look into what do the company do? Where do they have offices? Do they have, do they have opportunity? Do they have training programs where people can progress? If you do your research on the company, that will, obviously the employer will really, really think that this young person is keen and they've put an effort into looking into the company. So that's really good. And then the key thing, the last thing before the interview is practice. What you need to do is beg, steal and borrow as many friends, relatives, neighbours, whoever you can, and practice. Practice makes perfect is the old saying, but it is true and it will help you. It will also help to build your confidence, because an interview, it's a two-way scenario, but believe you me, when you go into an interview, an employer wants you to succeed. They want you to show them the skills and qualities that you can bring to this role, so that there aren't any trick questions, there aren't any trick scenarios. They want you to get it right, so the practice will help you with that. Okay, so then we're going to get to the actual interview. So during the interview, when it is remote and you are doing it through a laptop or a tablet, then what you need to do is ensure that you do make eye contact. We're not told you don't have to be staring down the camera full time. You don't have to be looking at it, and sort of not blinking, but you do need to make eye contact. The body language that you portray within an interview, it is a real indicator to an employer, and they'll want to see that. So if you do get offered the opportunity for an interview and they say it's going to be a video interview, it's not just a call, then be prepared to make sure that you show positive body language and that you maintain eye contact with the interviewer. And then one thing that we get asked a lot in the support we're providing to young people is when they're going to interviews, if they don't understand a question, please, please, please do not be afraid to ask the employer to explain something. It's far better to say to an employer, can you reword that please? Or can you explain what you mean, please? Rather than answering a question totally wrong and then thinking you haven't listened and you haven't understood. So please don't be afraid to ask the employer to explain something. And then questions. Questions are a major part of the interview. An employer will expect you to have some questions at the end. So try and at least pre-prepare 1 or 2 questions. If those questions get answered throughout the interview, what you can do when the interviewer says to you, have you any questions, you can say, oh yeah, I was going to ask, will there be opportunity to work at other locations? But we've covered that in the interview. Show the employer, even if your questions have been answered, that you did put some forethought into that. Okay, and we'll move on now. Okay, so mentioned by a lot of people throughout this whole webinar today has been who can help me. So we know we've got a plethora, a load of friends and relatives who can help us and support us in this. But what you will find is the majority of local training providers like ourselves will have a recruitment team who will give you this help and support. So if you do need application support, if you do need CV support, if you need help with actually doing the applications on the National Apprenticeship website, training providers usually have those teams who can help you do that, so you're not on your own. And then the National Careers Service as well. If you do actually Google National Careers Service and go on there, they have so many resources that you can use. So they have resources that will help you write a covering letter for an application, resources that will help you write a CV. They've got interview skills, but they've got a lot of resources on there that you can use, and hopefully it will help you, and again, build that confidence in an application and interview situation. And then finally, this is just a screenshot for you. This is the National Apprenticeship website. If you actually go on there, there are lots of resources. There's lots of videos where you can see real stories of young people who have been through the application process and the difference that completing an apprenticeship has made to them. So I would advise you to go on there. Like I say, it's got a lot of valuable information that really, really will support you in your application and interview process. And that basically is our masterclass in apprenticeships today, in applying for apprenticeships. I'd just like to thank everyone who's attended. I'd like to thank everyone who has presented and taken part. And if you do actually want any more information, or if you do have any questions, if you do go to Total People's website, there is an option for you to register your interest. If you send us your details, what we will do is get one of our recruitment and engagement officers to get in touch with you and see if we can help and support your journey to finding an apprenticeship. Okay. I am just going to flick now to this next page. So this is obviously it's Virtual Apprenticeship Week in GM, and there's lots of other webinars going on through the week. So this is just some details of other webinars that are going on. You can, if you visit the the address at the bottom. You can see where all these events are, see if any are going to be relevant for yourself. And all then that remains for me to say is thank you for joining us, and we hope we've helped in some way, and we hope that you do get in touch with us in the future and we can help you get on that journey.